Alrighty, this is the story of a girl. Cried a river and drowned the whole world. Hey everybody, and welcome back to Split Couch Games. Ben here with another episode of Skyrim mods for the Xbox One. And today we are taking a little bit of a focused look on a very specific type of load order. And this is a load order that is going to make Skyrim, which is a pretty old game now at this point. I believe it's 7 years old, something like that. I don't know. That part doesn't really matter. It's an old game, and the special edition that we have was upgraded in some aspects, you know, volumetric lighting, nicer textures, all that kind of stuff, but it didn't make it look next gen, as most people would like to put it. And that's what we're going to be looking at today, our collection of mods that is going to make the game both look and feel quote-unquote next gen. So let's get into it. Alrighty, so first up, I do want to be clear that you will be seeing gameplay footage of this load order kind of mixed in with footage of the load order itself, and I will kind of scroll through it one more time at the end of the video for anybody that is curious. And that being said, this load order does include a bunch of mods that overlap in some areas, so it is by no means required that you have all of these, but if you want to have a game that looks exactly like what you're seeing on screen now, then you will want to include most, if not all, of these mods. And I do have some mods in here that don't necessarily make the game look better, but in my opinion they may make it play better, or it maybe fixes a problem that breaks the immersion. Now, as always, we start off with the Unofficial Skyrim Special Edition patch. At this point, anybody that's familiar with modding should know that you should pretty much always have this specific mod in your load order, just to kind of help, you know, free up some headaches that may come later on. There are a lot of mods that require this to be in your load order, and even if the mods that you're using don't require it, it's probably a good idea to include it, just because it does fix a lot of the, you know, bugs and broken aspects of the original shipped game. Now, next up, we have the cutting room floor, which is something that I've talked about before. It's just a mod that kind of adds back in a lot of different things that were cut from the original game. You know, maybe some different NPCs, player houses, that kind of thing. Quests that were, you know, partially implemented, have been completed, all that kind of stuff. This isn't necessarily required, but it does kind of bring a little bit of a fresh light to things. If you are very familiar with Skyrim as a world, this may add in a few things that you haven't seen before. Now, the Static Mesh Improvement mod, also known as SMIM, is something that I've also talked about before. It increases the texture and also polygonal resolution, if you will, of a lot of different models in the game. It makes things like the chains and ropes on signs around town and that kind of thing actually three-dimensional. And overall, it just makes everything look rather nice. Now, that being said, it does have a little bit of a hit to performance, and there are mods that can be used to help counteract that, but those mods are not included in this load order right now, and that is simply because I did want to leave a little bit of free space, so if you did follow this exactly, you have a little bit of leeway in terms of adding in quest mods and that kind of thing, because as you can see, I am currently using 4.72 gigabytes out of my total 5 gigabyte allotment, which leaves me just under 300 megs available. Now, that being said, with my current load order, I haven't really noticed any major issues. I haven't had any crashes or any major frame rate dips, but obviously Skyrim is a massive game, so it can be kind of dependent upon what you may have already done in the world. It also will, performance will depend on tons of other things. Other mods that you may have included that maybe aren't on my list can impact performance. But like I said, there are plenty of mods out there that can help performance, and I will go over a couple of those at the end of the video, but I don't have them in my load order right now. Next up is Vivid Weather's Special Edition. I've talked about this before. It's a nice weather mod. It adds in over 500 different weathers that you will see as you play through Skyrim. And I feel like, if not this weather mod, at least a weather mod is almost a requirement at this point when it comes to playing Skyrim. Because once you experience a vast array of different weathers, it feels kind of weird to go back to the vanilla experience of only a limited number that maybe aren't as frequent as what they would be with a mod like this one. Now, next up, we have Cities of Skyrim Retexture Overhaul. Now, this is a mod that puts together several other smaller mods that are basically exactly what it says it is. It will retexture a lot of the cities, across Skyrim, and this mod is a compilation of all of the smaller mods. And so if you only want to, retexture a couple different cities, you can do so at a lower, usage amount. So if you don't have enough room for the 166 megabytes in your load order, then maybe you could go find a couple of the cities that you frequent more often and just download those. The author does provide links in the description of the mod, but they are Nexus mod links, so it's not super helpful for those of us on Xbox, but they should be easy enough to find simply by searching on the website or on the console. Skyrim Graphic Overhaul is what is up next, and that is part 1 and part 2. This is a massive collection of different texture and model overhauls. As you can see here, as I scroll through the list on just part 1, there are a number of different patterns and textures that are revamped using Skyrim Graphic Overhaul. And part 2 obviously is, more of the same. Now, these two mods do cover some of the aspects that are covered by both previous mods in the list, like Static Mesh Improvement mod, and other mods that I will go into more detail later on. Now, I haven't gone through and completely vetted this list, so for all I know, I may actually include one of the other mods later on that is already in here. But like I said, I didn't vet the list. I'm kind of lazy like that. If you want to do that legwork and maybe leave a comment below, that'd be sweet. Otherwise, you're just going to kind of have to roll with the fact that you might be duplicating some things. Now, here we have Rens Skyrim Remaster in both add-on 1 and 2. Now, these three mods kind of fall in line with Skyrim Graphic Overhaul Part 1 and 2, as well as Static Mesh Improvement mod, in the sense that they essentially just improve upon existing assets in the world. They make them look better and help just kind of bring it up to date to give it a more modern feel, so that it's not pixelated or super edgy, with like harsh blocky edges or something like that. Now, again, because it is a big old list of, replacements and everything, I'm not sure if it is covered, or, if anything in these three mods is covered by previous mods in the list. That's a lot of legwork that I'm personally not willing to do, and that's mainly because I do not have the time. As I've stated before, full-time job, so, don't really care. That being said, if you do ever find yourself running into an issue where you have, not enough mod space for a quest mod or an armor mod, weapon mod, something like that you're wanting to add in, and you are using this load order, my first area to cut back on would be one of these three groups. You could get rid of either Rens Skyrim Remaster and the associated add-ons, or Skyrim Graphic Overhaul, or you could even get rid of the Static Mesh Improvement mod. They do all cover a lot of similar areas, and there may or may not be a lot of overlap, but like I said, if you find yourself needing more space, I would start cutting back here, because these are probably the largest mods in the list, with the Skyrim Graphic Overhaul totaling up to almost about 800 megabytes, Static Mesh Improvement mod being over 900, and Rens Skyrim Remaster being well over a gigabyte. It looks like 1.3 gigabytes total for these three pieces. Now up next we have a few texture replacers that again may or may not be covered previously, but I liked the look of these, so I put them lower on my load order, so even if they are covered previously, this is the one that wins out. And for right here, we have Fluffy Snow. Kind of gives the snow a more, fluffy, natural look. It's kind of interesting, actually, because this is kind of one of those mods that you install and forget about, and then when you go back to the vanilla snow, it's a little jarring at how almost perfectly flat and white it is. Realistic water too is something that I've talked about previously, so no surprise here, it makes the water look better. If you ask me, the water in the vanilla version of the game does look rather viscous. It's really kind of like thick and slimy looking almost. This gives it more of a, fluid and water-like look, as opposed to, snot or Vaseline. Now, wood cover, plain and simple. It retextures a lot of the, miscellaneous tree stumps and that kind of thing with a more natural-looking wood texture. Same thing with Fire HD, gives you a better fire texture, so there's not a whole lot of explaining that needs to be done there. Now, Lush Overhaul is something that I've talked about before. It does exactly what it sounds like it would do. It adds in more trees, bushes, plants, all that kind of thing to give the world of Skyrim a more dense look. Enhanced trees for Skyrim. Plot twist. Enhances the trees. Makes them look nicer. It gives them, I believe it alters the height variance a little bit, but not a whole lot. So just kind of overall makes the trees look pretty. Same thing with HD Ivy. Woohoo! The Ivy is 2K. Surprisingly, Ivy is used a lot in this game. May not have been something that you noticed before, but you probably will now. So go ahead and download this one. Now, ELE, Interior Lighting Overhaul, is something that probably combats a little bit with the weather mod that you may have loaded earlier in the list, and that's simply because most weather mods do alter the lighting in the game. This one, however, is specific to interior lighting, and I do prefer it, for the most part, to other lighting mods. Now, that being said, this is something that could potentially cause problems. I may be missing a patch. I haven't had the time to look into it too much, but I'm only saying that because there are a few areas that kind of seem to be either way too bright or way too dark. So if you are going to be using ELE, Interior Lighting Overhaul, I recommend doing a little bit of research to make sure that you don't need any additional patches and that kind of thing. And if you don't, and you're still getting a lot of strange variances where some areas are too bright, some are too dark, then you may want to look for, inconsistencies and or incompatibilities in your load order. If I do the research and I don't find any patches that are missing, then I may end up uninstalling this. Enhanced blood textures is exactly that. It enhances the blood textures. And it's kind of nice because you don't really realize until you have it pointed out that the blood textures in the vanilla Skyrim are kind of subpar. They're very splotchy, almost as if like someone took like a red can of spray paint and just kind of went at the ground. This gives them a little bit more substance. It makes it appear on your weapons a little nicer. Overall, it's just a better experience. No snow under the roof is, again, something I've spoken about before, as well as immersive sounds. But no snow under the roof basically makes it so that if there is a, an archway or an awning, something like that, that should be covering an area, the ground beneath it will not have any snow on it. Immersive sounds is something that, kind of goes through and redoes a lot of the sounds in the game. It makes them more realistic in the sense that they don't quite take you out of the moment. A lot of the vanilla sounds have almost a impractical sound to them. I don't really know how else to describe it, but immersive sounds fixes all that. The swords sound like swords, bows sound like bows, and the spells sound like spells, I guess? I'm sure you get what I mean, but it's a great mod. I highly recommend it. If you're like me and you love quality audio, you're gonna want to download this one. And that actually goes for Sounds of Skyrim, Civilization, and the Wilds, or the Wilder, whatever. This one, it's cut off. I don't quite remember the name. I believe it's Sounds of Skyrim, the Wilds Before or something. I don't know. Whatever. It doesn't matter. But these two mods add in a lot of background noises, and they are actually highly customizable. Civilizations actually, as you can see there, Civilization focuses on adding 223 new sound effects to cities, villages, farms, and remote locations where civilization is present. Now, to help kind of give a little bit of context, basically what we're talking about here is we're talking about some market noises. So maybe like random chatter, maybe cats in alleyways, that kind of thing. Crickets, birds, all that kind of stuff. It adds a lot of immersive noises to the cities. So you can be walking through town and you'll hear, people like talking at stalls. You'll hear, all sorts of stuff. Cats, like I said before, you'll hear birds. And like, when you walk by the smithy, there'll be, like more smithy noises. I'm doing a great job of selling this one, I can tell you that. But the Sounds of Skyrim, the Wilds is basically the same thing. It adds in, around 460 plus new sound effects for the game world. So when you're out in the wilderness, it adds in some extra like wind noises for, wind blowing through the grass and trees, adds some like rock falling noises, that kind of thing, different animal noises. I can't really do it justice. To go with the Sounds of Skyrim, the Wilds, if you have vivid weathers like I do, then you will need this patch. If you don't have this patch, there's going to be some bad things that happen, so just go ahead and download the patch. It's only 30 KB, you'll be fine. Skyrim Player Revoiced. I've talked about this before. It basically is a redux of all of the player audio sounds in the game. And for some people that may not be that big of an issue. For me personally, once I started using these, it's really difficult to go back because there's a quite noticeable difference in quality. The vanilla audio, it's not bad. I don't want to make it sound like it's bad, but for as small as what this mod is in terms of size, I feel like it's well worth the download. The sound is often a lot clearer and almost gives a little more substance to your actions as a player. And they do have, I believe, I could be wrong about this, but I do believe that they cover both genders of every single race in the game. So realistically, you don't have any reason to not download it. That being said, you do only want to have the one downloaded for the character that you're using, because if you do this and you aren't playing that character, there's not really any point and you're just wasting space. Now, Realistic Conversations, the Xbox One version, obviously. This is something that a lot of people, you may or may not feel like it's necessary, but this is something that kind of, it does a lot of different things. A lot of different things that are, subtle and maybe often overlooked or accepted of, oh, I'm in a video game, of course this is going to happen. Things like if you are walking through the street, someone who's about 10 feet away from you to the left, walking in the opposite direction, in vanilla Skyrim, will all of a sudden just be like, hey, I know you, blah blah blah. They don't do this if you have, or they don't do that if you have this mod. This mod makes it so that you have to be at a much closer distance before NPCs engage with you, and they also have a more varied dialogue pool to draw from. So there's less repetitive nature to the NPCs in the game. It's really nice, and for 3.81 KB, definitely worth a download. TES Combined Music Overhaul. For those of you that are maybe only here for Skyrim, TES, TES, stands for The Elder Scrolls. And this is a combined music overhaul. It takes music from both, from all three of Skyrim, Oblivion, and Morrowind and puts them together. I honestly was expecting this to not be that great, but first of all, the music from all three games is amazing, so I don't know why I thought that. But second of all, it all kind of fits in a very oddly pleasing manner. The music from the other games have been, something that I miss at times. Not to say that the music in Skyrim is bad, but the music from the other two games is, just equally as good, and it mixes it in quite nicely. Sometimes I'll be pleasantly surprised by a track from Oblivion or Morrowind, other times I get my standard Skyrim track. It's pretty great, and if you played the other games and you enjoyed the soundtracks from those games, then this is probably worth an install. We have a big long list here of different mods that will improve character models and that kind of thing. These are mainly focused around female character models because, let's be honest, that's pretty much all the Skyrim modding community focuses on. So, that being said, if you're looking for, male model improvements, I'm sure those mods are out there. You just have to do a little bit more focused looking. That being said, some of these mods are kind of, race and even gender agnostic, so definitely still worth paying attention. First up is Superior Lore-Friendly Hair, and it does exactly that. It adds in a bunch of different hairstyles that are, believe it or not, lore-friendly, and they're actually really well done. I was surprised that, for less than 10 megs, I was able to have, I don't even know how many, but a whole different just set of different hairstyles that were added in, and they were wonderfully well done, and I ended up using one of them without even really realizing that it wasn't a vanilla option. That's how well it kind of fits into the universe. Now, no more blocky faces. Pretty self-explanatory. It kind of ups the resolution on the models for the faces. May not be 100% necessary depending on any other mods that you may have installed. This animation right here, the female animation V.4 XB1, is just a idle animation replacer for female models. This one just kind of makes it so that you can see the character breathing. I decided to test it out because I recently also installed XP32 Maximum Skeleton plus Realistic Ragdolls and Force, which is a mouthful. But I recently installed this mod, which allows custom animations to be used, and this being a custom animation, I decided, let's try this out. So that's what it is. Take that as you will, I suppose. Seraphin Female Body Replacer is back on the Bethesda.net mod site. It did disappear for a while because the mod author was in disagreement with Bethesda's policies around certain things, and I guess he changed his mind? I'm not really sure, but it's back, so yay. This is a armor replacer for UNP female body type model replacer things. I mean, anybody that knows anything about Skyrim modding knows that there are a bajillion and one different body replacers. This just happens to coincide with the female body replacer, and it makes the armors actually fit the shape of the body replacer, if that makes any sense. Populated cities, towns, villages, all that kind of stuff basically adds in new NPCs to the populated cities, towns, and villages. So you will see, different new hunters and mages just kind of walking around town. It's kind of a nice immersion thing. Ordinator perks of Skyrim is, again, something that I've covered before. It redoes the perk tree, makes it a little more interesting, adds in some new abilities and that kind of thing. If you are tired of the old perk tree, or maybe you always thought there were some problems with it, I definitely recommend checking this out. Wet and Cold is a pretty simple mod. It's something that basically just kind of adds in different effects to your character when they experience, wet and or cold weather. Like if you walk through a river, they'll come out and they'll be dripping, there'll be soggy feet sound effects, all that kind of stuff. Cheat Room is pretty self-explanatory. I mainly use it because I make videos like this and I need to get a character from level 1 to 30 very quickly. Lore-based loading screens, again, pretty self-explanatory. It replaces, well, not replaces, but it adds in a lot of different loading screens into the game that are more lore-friendly and that kind of thing. So if you're into that, there you go. Bosmer Armor Pack is just something I've been, testing out. It looked like a neat armor set, so I decided might as well. It has a very nice archer feel to it, but there are lots of other options as well. Like there are some hoods and robes, capes, all that kind of stuff. So it would probably work out regardless of what type of character you're looking to play. And again, that is something that is not necessarily required for anything in terms of like making the game feel next gen. So you can replace it with any armor and or weapon mods that you see fit, as long as you have room. And Stay Arrow Stay is a small mod that I downloaded that basically changes how many arrows can be alive in the world at once. Because if you're like me, you like playing archer characters and you shoot 50 arrows into, a troll or something, and you walk up to it and it only has 3 sticking out of it, it's kind of weird. This makes it so that, if you shoot 50 arrows into a character, 50 arrows are gonna stay in the world, and 25 of them will probably be in the character. So it's kind of nice. Anyways, that's it for my active mod list. Now, for a couple of different mods that will help improve performance. All right, there are some new ones that have been uploaded, and there are tons that I've covered before, including Insignificant Object Remover and, conveniently enough, named FPS Boost. There is a new one called FPS and Graphics Improver First Person Friendly. He doesn't go into a whole lot of details as far as what he does. It just says improved FPS. So if you're super concerned about the potential performance impact of some of the more graphics heavy mods in the list, then you could download things like this, Insignificant Object Remover, all that kind of stuff, and it will improve your performance. That being said, I would like to reiterate that out of all these mods I've downloaded, and I am playing with that load order, I haven't noticed any, major performance drops. There have been a few moments where I can tell that I dip kind of below that 30 FPS mark, but it's nothing terrible. Like, I don't drop down into the single digits or anything like that, and it's typically only for a brief moment. All right, and that is all I have to say about all of that. If you have any questions about this load order, or if you have any questions about anything else Skyrim modding related, especially on the Xbox One, feel free to drop a comment below, and I will do my best to answer those questions. If you like this video, be sure to give it a like and share it with your friends if you really enjoyed it. And if you want me to cover any specific mods or any specific style of mods, then also drop a comment below, send us a message, tweet at us, anything like that. We're pretty receptive to that kind of feedback. In the meantime, you guys have a wonderful rest of your day. See you next time on Split Couch Games.